Hi guys, welcome to the channel today. In this video I'm going to be showing you how I designed this very simple web landing page, and this is going to be very beginner friendly. So if you're new to UI design or visual design, I'm going to be explaining in details how I achieved every single part of this design. I'm just going to scroll around to show you what the final design will look like. And trust me guys, even if you're not new to Figma design, you're going to be learning a lot in this video. I'm going to be showing you lots of tips and tricks on how to speed up your design process, and also how to use some of the new features that Figma just updated. And much later in the designing of this website, we are going to be having some interactions and some smart animations. So guys, I'm very sure we're going to have a lot of fun. Please don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell to get more videos like this. So the first thing we are going to be doing is to create the basic foundation of our designs. We're going to be defining the structure and the layout. So as you can see guys, I've created a new design file. I've also added a desktop frame. I'm just going to go ahead to reduce the size of the desktop frame to 800. Because that's just how I like it. I'm then going to rename the frame to landing page, and I'm also going to rename the entire name of the design file. So the next thing I'm going to do is to create another frame. This time I'm going to fit this new frame inside the landing page frame that I just created. I really hope you understand that. So I'm just going to click at the top left corner and drag my cursor down to create a new frame. As you can see from your left hand side where the layers are, you can see that there is a new frame under the desktop frame. So this is exactly where we're going to be putting all our contents. I'm going to click on the main landing page frame, and I'm going to head over to the right, and I'm going to uncheck this clip contents right here, which basically lets you hide the objects that are not in the frame. I'm also going to click on the main frame and fill it with a color of white. Now you can see that our screen is looking slightly larger because the main frame in it that is inside the desktop is slightly larger. I'm just going to go to the layout grid, and I'm going to add a layout grid to it so that I will have a proper margin to work with. I'm going to add the height of the margin to like 150 pixel or 100 pixel, depending on what you like. You can use any amount you have, but the idea behind this is just to have a margin on the left and right so that you can keep your content nice and neat in the middle. So after doing that, I think I'm going to use 100 pixel margin. The next thing to do would be to add our navigation bar. So I'm just going to try to add a rectangle here to show that the navigation bar will be in this position. So in the navigation bar, the first thing you would have is our brand identity. That is where you have your logo. So I'm just going to create a text that says web logo. I'm going to give it a particular styling. I'm going to make it really bold so that it feels obvious. And I'm going to shove it in the position where it should be. I'm just trying to quickly ideate through the navbar so we show the typical contents of what should be on the navbar. The next thing I'm going to do is to add the navbar links, which is on the right hand side of the navbar. So I'm going to create the navbar link item, which includes things like the services, the about us, the contact us, and things like that. I'm going to give this word I just created an auto layout because I want to make it feel like a button when it's clicked. So I'm also going to go ahead to make it a component because we are also going to have other navbar link items, and then I want to be able to make changes to all of them at the same time if I need to. So I'm going to make it a component, and I'm going to duplicate that content back to where the navbar is, and I'm going to duplicate it for other navbar items. So I'm going to duplicate it like 3 to 4 more times. This can vary on the number of navbar links you want, but for me, I'm just going to keep duplicating the navbar item to the specific number of links I want to be on navbar. So I'm just going to give the main component a default name. Then I'm going to come to individual components and rename them. But first, I want to align all the contents of the auto layouts to the middle, which is to the center. Then I'm going to click on the text here and come to contents, and I'm going to add a text property to that component. If you don't know about a text property, a component text property basically just allows you to assign a value to a text property. So if you give it a particular text property, now when we click on the instance of that component, we can just edit the property from the right hand side of the panel without having to dive into the layers of that component. So this is a really cool feature, guys, and you can use it anytime you want to. So I'm just going to properly align these navbar items, these navbar link items, and I'm going to just arrange them nice and neat at the top of the navbar. As you can see, I'm going to select every single one of them and keep creating my links, because I still want one more, which is, I guess, is the register link, right? So once I have all my navigation links at the top of the navigation bar, I'm just going to select every single one of them and hit Shift A to create auto layout between them, because I want an even spacing between them. Now I have my navbar link items, and this is just a personal preference. This is how I like to create it. For some people, you can just create the navbar link items without making them a component, or without just put in your text at the right hand side of it, and that's fine. So as you can see, I've removed the background where we have the rectangle, but I'm also going to select the web identity, which is your logo, and also the navbar link items, and I'm going to hit Shift A, center it in the middle. I'm also going to click the frame of the navbar items and center it in the middle. So I'm just going to rename this whole section to be like the navbar content, so that I'm going to differentiate the navbar content from the entire navbar itself. The next thing I'm going to do is to add some padding around the navbar and properly position the navbar item. So I'm going to click on this three dots and spacing mode here. I'm going to select the space between, so that it gives a space between the navbar identity and the navbar content links. Then I'm going to give the left and the right padding a specific value. I'm going to give it 100 pixel, because what I basically want is, I want 100 pixel padding for the whole navbar, so that the content fits in the middle and it fits just exactly how we set our layout grid to be. As you can see, the content are basically positioned right in the middle where we have our layout grid, and that is exactly what I am trying to achieve. I'm also going to go ahead to increase the top and the bottom margin. You can give it any value you like. I like to keep my navbar a little slim at the top, so I don't like the height to be a little more than 60 to 70 pixel, but you can just do you and use a specific value that suits you. It can be bigger, it can be smaller, as long as it's visible and accessible. So as you can see here, I've also given that frame where we have the whole navbar a different color, just to create that distinction from the regular page. So as you can see how nice our navbar is looking, nice and organized, and its contents are perfectly fit within our layout grid that we've planned out. So the next thing I'm going to do here is to add our header title text. So as you can see here, I've typed in the header title text. I'm just going to add some styling to it, so it looks really bold and big and readable, and it looks like a typical header title text. So I'm just going to adjust its size and its weight, just like I'm doing here. Feel free again to use the visuals that fits what you're trying to achieve. But for this design, this is what I'm going to be doing. I'm also going to add in our subtitle text just below the title text, and I'm going to organize both of them on each other by selecting both of them and hitting Shift A. So I'm just going to perfectly place them on the screen where I like it. So the next thing I want to do is to add our image on the right. I've pasted in the image, as you can see, and I'm also going to be posting a video on how I removed the background on this image. So if you've been wondering how to remove an image background, I have a video to ease this process for you. The next thing I'm going to be doing is to add our call to action to the header. So I'm just going to use this get started text. I'm going to adjust the font size and the font style of that particular text. And as you can see, there's an extra padding in the text. I'm just going to go to the line height and text and type in the auto word, so it reverts the padding around the text to auto. Now I'm going to hit Shift A to give it an auto layout, and I'm going to increase the padding around the text because I want our button to be a little bigger and obvious. I'm also going to go to the fill and try to give the button a particular color. I think I'm just going to go with this orange shade in the image. I'm going to go with this orange color that is in the image. After that, I'm going to try to position the button perfectly and change the text color of the button to white, just like the way you see me do here. So I'm also going to go to the radius section and add a little bit of radius to the button. You can make your button look like a pill by adding 100% or 50% radius. So the next thing I want to do, I think this our header section is looking nice, is to add the section where we have our partners or clients, where we have the brand identity, we have the brand logos of our partners or our clients. And to do that, I'm just going to draw a frame. You can use a rectangle, but I like to use a frame so that the contents can fit in the frame rather than grouping my rectangles with the items that are going to be on it. So I'm just going to draw out a frame, and I'm going to try to position the frame at the top of my header contents so that this image fits at the back of the client section or the partners section. So I'm just going to go ahead and rename those layers on the left so that I can perfectly identify what the layers are. And after properly renaming the layers, what I'm going to do next, I notice I've not created an auto layout between the header text and the button, so I'm going to select both items and I'm going to hit Shift A to create an auto layout. And I'm going to rename that section. So the next thing we want to do, guys, is to work on our client section. And as you can see here, I already have the frame. What I'm going to do next is to paste in our partners logo, which I just did, and it's a bit larger than the web page. So what I'm going to do, since all items are selected, I'm going to hit K on the keyboard and I'm going to try to reduce the size of the whole selected items. So if you want to scale down a selected group of items that have more than one element in it and you want to equally scale it down, you can hit K on the keyboard, then click and drag to reduce the items. You will notice that all the items will reduce, and if you want to revert the action, you're just going to click V. You're going to press V on the keyboard and you're going to revert the action. So I'm just going to select this frame where we have the client and I'm going to rename it to our partners. You can call it whatever you like. So the next thing to do is to also rename all the logos for proper identification. I like to rename my layers, as you've noticed, but feel free to do what suits you. And the next thing I'm going to do is to select all of these icons. I noticed all the logos are positioned a little bit at the top of the frame. I'm just going to select every single one of them and try to move them to the center of the frame, just like you see me doing here. I'm then going to try to make some adjustments to the logos in the our partner section, just to achieve a particular visuals, to make the visuals a little balanced. And as you can see, our header section is coming out very pretty. It's coming out very nice. And I hope you guys have gotten the whole process up till this point. But then at this point, I really haven't figured out how the rest of the layers are going to look like. So I'm just going to click on the main page here. I'm going to hold command and I'm going to drag down the notch and increase the size of the frame. So since I haven't figured out exactly what the layers of other sections would be like, I'm just going to create a frame and try to ideate through these sections. I'm going to create a frame for the what we do section, and I'm going to try to create simple wireframes around it to get the positioning and the structure or layout of what the contents of that frame would be like. The first thing that would be there will be the header, will be the title of that section, which is what we do, and I'm also going to have a little description of what we do. So I'm going to hold down Alt, then click and drag out a particular element to duplicate it, which is what I did for our text here. So after duplicating it, I'm just going to paste in the title description of what we're going to be doing. It's just going to be placed under the title of the frame, that is the title of the section, what we do, and I'm just going to adjust the size and the font weight of that description so it looks something like this. So as you can see, I'm just trying to increase the frame a little bit so that it fits or it contains more content. It is really advisable to have quick ideations of what you want to design, for you to create wireframes where you can just play around with how you want the contents to be and how you want things to originally be structured before you actually start making the real designs. And this is what I'm going to be doing for this what we do section and other sections. I'm just going to speed up the video from this part till when we are done with the addition process. I really just want to bring down what I think it should be in my head before I actually start designing every single thing. So for this what we do section, I'm just going to basically add 3 cards that mentions 3 things that we do. This is supposed to be like an agency or something. So the what we do section, we have like 3 services. Then I'm also going to do the same thing for other sections. So once I'm done with the wireframes and ideating through what should be in other sections, we are now going to go into designing the mockups and properly improving the visuals. It's been way too long. If I could lay down beside you, I would. When nothing really matters, that's all I wanna do. I hope that you are safe and that I will see you soon. If I could lay down beside you, I would. We talk on the phone every night. Love to hear your voice. Not sleeping well, and I know that you're right, but you should know it. You've been gone for way too long now. If I could lay down beside you, I would. When nothing really matters, that's all I wanna do. I hope that you are safe and that I will see you soon. If I could lay down beside you, I would. Even if you're gone, I won't forget you. You're all I know, what I need, and that ain't changing.
beside you, I would. When nothing really matters, that's all I wanna do. I hope that you are safe and that I will see you soon. If I could lay down beside you, I would. If I could lay down beside you, I would. When nothing really matters, that's all I wanna do. I hope that you are safe and that I will see you soon. If I could lay down beside you, I would. I would. There's not much to do when all I can is thinking about you. Not doing well, don't know where you are, 'cause you're not here. It's been way too long. If I could lay down beside you, I would. When nothing really matters, that's all I wanna do. I hope that you are safe and that I will see you soon. If I could lay down beside you, I would. I would. I would. We talk on the phone every night. Love to hear your voice. Not sleeping well. And I know that you're right, but you should know it. You've been gone for way too long now. If I could lay down beside you, I would. When nothing really matters.
Now, after I've completely setting up all the layouts and drawing out our wireframes for the remaining section, I will now begin to fine-tune these designs and improve the visuals of our mockup. But the very first thing I'm going to do is to select all our frames for each section, and I'm going to remove the stroke around it, because typically I don't want us to have any stroke around our frames. After doing that, the next thing, I'm just going to zoom into the first section, which is the what we do section, and I'm going to start working on the actual content of the card that should be in this place. So I'm just going to duplicate a sample of one of the cards just so that I have the exact height and width to work with. I'm going to type in the card title, and I'm going to style the title to just the exact amount of size and weight that I want. From here, I also want to have an icon that complements the text, so I'm going to paste in a couple of icons. Each will be representing each content for an individual card, and I intend to have 3 cards in the what we do section. So I'm just going to work with this first icon here. I'm going to create an auto layout on it, and I'm going to give the auto layout some padding around it. I'm going to fill it with a very light green color, just like the one you're seeing here, and I'm going to curve the edges or round up the edges a little bit. So I think this is good enough for our card. Now I'm going to paste in the subtext for our title. I'm just going to paste it below here, and I'm going to try to fit it just below the card title. The next thing I would like to do is to add a call to action button in our card, so that, for instance, if someone gets interested with the service in that particular card, the person can just click on the call to action to take them to a different page where they can perform whatever action you want them to perform. So after creating our learn more button, I'm going to add an icon to complement the button. I'll be using this plugin called Iconly. With Iconly, you can get a collection of icons from different sources. You can go to your Figma plugin community to install it. So I'm just going to type in arrow in the search field and select this particular arrow here. I'm going to dive into the layer of that arrow icon, and I'm going to remove the particular vector from its frame. I'm then going to position the icon just next to the label of the button, and I'm going to reduce the spacing between them a little. So as you can see, I'm going to be adding padding to the left and right, and also to the top and bottom of the button. Then the next thing I'm going to do is to quickly rename our button, and I'm going to go ahead to make this whole section organized with auto layout. So I'm going to first organize the header and the subtitle using auto layout. I'm also going to click on that whole text section and click on the icon section and make it a single frame with auto layout. Then I'm going to include the learn more button. Now we have our card completely organized with auto layout. Now the next thing to do will be to properly position our newly created card in the position where it should be. So I'm just going to take out the initial boxes that are there, and I'm going to replace it with this new content we just created. So as you can see, it looks really nice, but there are no padding around it, and we want it to have the size of the boxes which we used to ideate in that particular position. So from what we can see, the first thing I think I'm going to do right here is to add padding around this content we just created. So I'm going to head over to the padding section, and I'm going to give the top and bottom this particular value, and I'm going to give also the right and left padding a particular value. I'm also going to check that against the original size of the boxes in which we used to edit for that section, if those sizes match, and if they don't, I'm just going to try to adjust it manually. Or what you could do is click on that sizing option there where you have fixed or hug. You can change the option to fixed, then give it a particular value, just like the way you're seeing here. So now I've gotten the exact values I had with the images I had, with the shape I had initially. So I'm just going to fill the background a little bit and give it a stroke so that I can properly identify it. I've also gone ahead to duplicate this particular card 3 more times, just to be sure the particular sizing fits what I wanted to use it for. But then what I want to do now is to make it a component. Since I'm going to be using that same card 3 more times, I would like to make it a component. I've also gone ahead to make our icons that we'll be using for the 3 individual cards a component also, because in our card component I want to have an instance swap property. That means I want to be able to swap the position of that icon for the 3 different cards we'll be making. So I'm just quickly going to rename the card, and basically what I want to do here is to make this card a component. Now after making this card a component, the next thing to do will probably be, or the next best thing to do will be to click on our icon section. And I notice our icons have a little too much padding around it, so I'm going to head over to the controls on the right after selecting each of these icons, and I'm going to just reduce the size of the padding, the left and right and the top and bottom padding, and this seems fine. What I'm going to do next is to select our icon that is in the component. Then I'm going to head over to this button right here, and I'm going to create an instance swap. I'm just going to name this instance swap property to be icon, or what we do card icon. I really don't like this naming, so later in the video I'm definitely going to change this. So I'm just going to set the default icon to be one of these icon here. I'm going with the activity icon. So as you can see, we now have an instance swap property on our card. Now I can click and copy our card and paste to replace with the one on the board. So as you can see, the card on the board now have the properties we want, and if we change it to the heart, you can see that you can easily swap the icon that is in that position. And if I swap it to the briefcase icon, you're definitely going to see that it changed. So this, guys, is exactly the work of an instant swap property, but just note that you cannot swap a position with its components, which is what I tried to do here, and you can see that little error message that shows there. So the next thing to do is to fill up that whole spot with our card that we just created. I'm just going to duplicate this card 2 more times, and then I just noticed that I only created an instant swap property in our card, whereas we could also create a text property so that we can easily replace the text in our component. As you can see, if we are going to do that, typically the way we will do before the updates on Figma, you will just dive into the layers of your individual component, and you're going to select the layer in which you want to change the text and change the text. But now if you go to your main component, you can select where you want to have a text property. Click on this icon next to the content, and I'm just going to go with the default property, but I'm going to change the name of the property to probably what we do card title. I really don't like this naming. My naming decision is just too poor. I'm just going to click on the OK button there, and now we have a text property on our main component. I'm also going to do the same thing for the subtitle in our main component. I'm going to click on this create property right here. I'm also going to give the property a particular name, which is what we do card subtitle or something. God, how am I coming up with these names? Then I'm just going to click on the create property there. So now if you click on our main component, you can now see that we have 3 different text properties, 3 different properties on the right. So we can just click on an instance, then you can see these properties. You can then go ahead to just rename it. I'm just going to paste in the property there, and I think I've had enough. I can't bear these names anymore, so I'm just going to click on the edit button right there, and I'm going to edit these names. I'm just going to remove the what we do card there and just leave header text and subtitle text. I think that's nice enough. Then for the icons, I'm just going to remove the first part of it, just like this. Or you can give your property the name of your choice and be very flexible with it. So I'm just going to go ahead to continue setting up the values of all our text property, both the header text and the subtitle text, for the rest of the cards. So as you can see, guys, this section is coming out really nice and organized, but after changing the text properties, I noticed I still haven't swapped the right icons. So I'm just going to click on the instance and give them the proper icons that complements the card title and content. So I'm going to make sure they all have the proper icons on them. I also like my card to have a little rounded corners on the edges, so it makes it look really nice and modern. I'm just going to round up the corners a little more, increase the value, and make sure it's just properly rounded. Then the next thing to do, I noticed I haven't added an auto layout in our card title. Then I'm just going to click on the what we do and the what we do description, and I'm going to add an auto layout on the card title and description. The next thing I'm going to do from here is to select our card. I'm going to select all 3 cards and hit Shift A to create an auto layout between them and give it a specific margin, and I'm going to be using 45. I've calculated the size of the card including its margin so that it's going to fit within where we set the contents to be for the layout grid, just like the way you're seeing here. You can see how neatly arranged these things are. So I think our header section is good. Now what we do, I think it's coming out fine. The next thing we want to go into is our portfolio section. And basically what we want to have in our portfolio section is just the image of the portfolio and the text description, or a text title and description of what the portfolio is all about, a very short description. So I'm just going to remove these sample boxes here, and I'm going to paste in the actual images I'm using for the portfolio. And obviously these images are just shots gotten from Dribble. These are not my work, just so I get that out there. So I'm going to click on one of these images and drag them to the position where it should be. I'm going to be having something like a Monterey grid on the portfolio section. You can feel free to make yours any kind of grid you want. So I'm going to type in a portfolio title, and I'm going to just size up the text to the actual size and font width that I want, as you can see here. Feel free to do you. I'm also going to type in a portfolio subtitle, and I'm going to properly arrange both the title and the subtitle by selecting both and hitting Shift A to create an auto layout. I'm also going to select the image and hit Shift A to create a proper auto layout for both the image and the description of the image. I'm properly going to align both of them to sit perfectly in the top right corner of the portfolio section. And I'm going to do the same thing for the second portfolio. I'm going to do the same thing for the third and for the fourth portfolio.
Talk on the phone every night. Love to hear your voice. Not sleeping well, and I know that you're right, but you should know it. You've been gone for way too long now. If I could lay down beside you, I would. When nothing really matters, that's all I wanna do. I hope that you are safe and that I will see you soon. If I could lay down beside you, I would. Even if you're gone, I won't forget you. You're all I know, what I need, and that ain't changing. And even if you're gone, I will remember. You're all I know, what I need, and that ain't changing. If I could lay down beside you, I would. When nothing really matters, that's all I wanna do. I hope that you are safe and that I will see you soon. If I could lay down beside you, I would. If I could lay down beside you, I would. When nothing really matters, that's all I wanna do. I hope that you are safe and that I will see you soon. If I could lay down beside you, I would. There's not much to do when all I can is thinking about you. Not doing well, don't know where you are, 'cause you're not here. It's been way too long. If I could lay down beside you, I would. When nothing really matters, that's all I wanna do. I hope that you are safe and that I will see you soon.
So as you can see, guys, I've completely done the same thing for all 4 portfolio projects. As you can see, what I'm going to do next is just to remove the auto layout so I can clearly see what you're doing. So this looks nice. You're just going to turn off the layout grid by clicking on that eye icon right there, and this looks a little nice, but I feel like there's not enough spacing between the left and right column. So I'm just going to select each of these sections. I'm going to hit K, then I'm going to scale the section down a little bit. You will need to hit K on the keyboard to properly scale everything at the same time. And don't forget to revert this option, you just have to hit V on the keyboard when you're done scaling. So I'm just going to use a particular width. I'm going to watch my width from the panel on the right as I'm scaling down this individual section, so that I will make sure all the individual sections have the same size. And as you can see now, there is a nice looking space in the middle, so all the items can properly breathe. And we are done with the portfolio section. The next part will be the testimonial section, which is going to basically have a cards of clients who have had testimonies about the agency. So the first thing I'm going to do is to select these boxes right here that I use for the ideation, and I'm going to start adding up the actual content. So now I'm going to type in the actual testimony by the clients. I'm not going to bore you guys with the whole typing, so I'm just going to paste it right in, just the way you see here. The next thing I'm going to do is to type in the name and the position of the person who just testified about this particular service or product, and I'm going to properly arrange this and give it the proper hierarchy so that we can achieve a particular visuals. I'm also going to go ahead to use auto layout to properly align the contents here, which I just did. The next thing I want to do is to add in an avatar so that it indicates the face of the person who has this particular testimony. But first, I'm going to make sure there is a padding around the content. So this looks more like a card which we used to ideate for this section. And just like every other card section we've created, I'm just going to duplicate this and I'm going to make it a component, because I'm going to be duplicating these cards multiple times because we have similar structure. So after duplicating the card, I'm just going to take out what we had initially, and I'm going to properly position an instance of this card back at the position where it should be. I'm then going to make a couple duplicates of this card so that we have a series of testimony. I'm also going to select all three cards and hit Shift A to create an auto layout between them. I'm then going to quickly make a little adjustments to the card just so that it fits what we are trying to achieve. And I'm going to head over to the right and round up the corners a little bit. And I think this is just perfect. I also noticed I haven't properly organized the section title and description, so I'm going to select both the title and the description, and I'm going to hit Shift A, give it an auto padding and properly position it on the frame. So the next thing I'm going to work on is this circles right here. The circles are supposed to indicate the direction of flow for the cards. That means if you want to scroll the cards right or left. So I'm just going to head over to our icons plugin and I'm going to select a proper arrow that points in the direction of where we want it to scroll. So I'm going to search through these items to find the proper icon that fits the objective you're trying to achieve. I guess I found something. I'm just going to go ahead and use this particular icon right here. I'm going to click on it and click on the import icon button at the bottom of the page, and I'm going to close this. So I'm just going to click and scale this whole icon down. Then I'm going to position it where I would like it to be, and I'm going to just make some little styling adjustments on it so that it looks like the direction button that we want.
There's not much to do when all I can is thinking about you. Not doing well, don't know where you are, 'cause you're not here. It's been way too long. If I could lay down beside you, I would. When nothing really matters, that's all I wanna do.
After achieving this for the right direction flow, I'm just going to duplicate it and flip it horizontally so that I can have the opposite direction flow. I'm just going to change the looks of the opposite direction to show that one is active and the other is not. So I'm going to select both of these icons and I'm going to create an auto layout between them. I'm also going to select the contents, which is the title on the left and this direction buttons on the right, and I'm going to hit Shift A to create an auto layout. And as you've noticed how much we've used the auto layout in our designs, I use this a lot to keep my design really clean and organized, and it's really important to be able to master the use of auto layout. Next, I'm going to select the section in my major components where I want to add the avatar, and I'm going to paste in the avatar. I'm also going to restructure the way that section looks like. I'm going to click on the person's name and its role. I'm going to create an auto layout. Then I'm going to change the direction of flow of the components in that auto layout, of the elements in that auto layout section. So as you can see, this is looking nice. I'm just going to add a little space between the avatar and the description of the avatar. As you can see now, this looks pretty cool, and we are almost there, guys. We have gone a long way in designing this website's landing page.
When nothing really matters, that's all I wanna do. I hope that you're safe and that I will see you soon. If I can lay down beside you.
Now, as you can see that we have only two sections left, which is the newsletter section and the footer section. We've completed the testimonial, the portfolio section, the what we do, and also our header. So to get this part going, I'm just going to take out this rectangle and this parts, and I'm going to try to create an input field with a button that says subscribe. So I'm just going to quickly walk you through how I created this. You're just going to create a text. You're going to give your text a particular color. Then I'm going to use auto layout to actually create this input field. I'm going to select the text in the auto layout. I'm going to give it a particular font size that I like. Then I'm going to hit Shift A to create auto layout on the text. The next thing I'm going to do is to increase the padding around the text to make the input field a little bit more obvious. And I'm going to go ahead to increase the width of the input field so that it becomes very big and obvious. The next thing to do will be to add a button. I'm just going to head over to this header section, and I'm going to copy this button here because I want to keep the button consistent across this website. So I'm going to copy the button, and I'm going to try to make the button and the input field almost the same height, so that I can fit the button right next to the input field, just like the way you see me doing here.
Every night, love to hear your voice, not sleeping well. And I know that you're right, but you should know.
So once I'm done adjusting the size, I'm just going to shove the button right next to the input field so that it becomes just what we want to achieve.
When nothing really matters, that's all I wanna do. I hope that you're safe and that I will see you soon. If I can lay down beside you, I would.
I'm also going to go ahead to rename the button to subscribe so that it's obvious that it's a subscribe button. Then I'm going to adjust it a little bit so that it sits perfectly right next to the input field. And if your button doesn't sit perfectly in the input field, make sure to check the absolute positioning on the button so that once you drag it to the auto layout frame of the input field, it doesn't create a directional flow. Instead, it floats just around the auto layout frame.
If I could lay down beside you, I would. If I could lay down beside you, I would. When nothing really matters, that's all I wanna do. I hope that you are safe and that I will see you soon. If I could lay down beside you, I would. There's not much to do when all I can is thinking about you. Not doing well, don't know where you are, 'cause you're not here. It's been way too long. If I could lay down beside you, I would. When nothing really matters, that's all I wanna do. I hope that you are safe and that I will see you soon.
So as you can see, guys, I'm done with the newsletter section and this looks nice. What's left is going to be the footer section, and typically the contents that are on the footer sections are usually things like the quick links. You have the copyright, you have privacy policies, you have terms and conditions, you have FAQs, you have addresses and things like that. Just things that really describe the web or the agency as a whole. So I'm just going to remove all these placeholder boxes here, which I'm using to just ideate the whole process, and I'm going to start actually putting what should be in the footer there.
When nothing really matters, that's all I wanna do. I hope that you are safe and that I will see you soon. If I can lay down beside.
The first thing I'm going to do is to create this little brand identity section where you have the brand logo and any brief description of the brand. So I've just copied the brand identity from my navbar, and I'm going to just type in a quick description of what should be there. And I've also switched on auto layout back on so that I can make sure the contents I'm creating fit perfectly in where I want the content to be contained. So I'm going to go ahead to type in a brief description about this, and I'm also going to properly arrange and resize it properly at the bottom left corner.
If I can lay down beside you, I would. If I can lay down beside you, I would. When nothing really matters, that's all I wanna do. I hope that you.
The next thing I'm going to bring in are the social media icons, where you have social media icons for the agency. I'm just going to paste them in, and I'm going to properly position them and change the color. You can always get all these social media icons from that Iconify plugin I showed you earlier. There are a lot and tons of icons on them. So the next section on the footer is going to be the quick links section, and also the section we have our address. So I'm just going to quickly paste in the contents and arrange the contents that are supposed to be in the quick links and the address section.
If I can lay down beside you, I would. When nothing really matters, that's all I wanna do. I hope that you are safe and that I will see you soon. If I can lay down beside you, I would. on the phone every night. Love to hear your voice. Not sleeping well. And I know that you're right, but you should know it. You've been gone for way too long now. If I could lay down beside you, I would. When nothing really matters, that's all I wanna do. I hope that you are safe and that I will see you soon. If I could lay down beside you, I would. Even if you're gone, I won't forget you. You're all I know, what I need, and that ain't changing. And even if you're gone, I will remember. You're all I know, what I need, and that ain't changing. If I could lay down beside you, I would. When nothing really matters, that's all I.
After adding all the contents I need on the footer section, I'm going to click on the frame and give it a background color. I'm also going to go ahead and uncheck the eye icon on the layout grid to remove the layout grid from it. So guys, as you can see, this website is almost done, and I must congratulate you for getting to this stage of the video. So I'm just going to go ahead and select all the title of the sections, and I'm going to change the color of all the section title just to give it a nice looking distinction from all the other normal text.
There's not much to do when all I can is thinking about you.
So in order to get exactly what we did in the final design, I'm going to remove the color from the header section, and I'm going to add a little bit more styling to the card sections we have, which is the what we do card and also the testimonial section card. I'm going to go ahead to change the color of the call to action button on our header, and the next thing I want to do is to have those little icons that are attached to our image in the header section. So I'm just going to paste in those specific icons on the header, and I'm going to position them properly. The first thing I'm going to do is to resize them. I'm going to hit K on the keyboard while making sure all the icons are selected, and I'm going to scale it down. Then I'm going to separate each of them and position them properly in where I want it to be, and I think this is okay. The next thing I want to create are those little dots around the images. I'm just going to create a square, a very tiny square, round up the corners a little bit, change the colors and spread them across the image just like the way you're seeing right here. So as you can see, this header section is now looking like what we have in our final designs. Feel free to play around and ideate with the things you feel like you can improve on, because I'm very sure you all have better ideas than I do. Feel free to play around with what you think. So I'm just going to make little adjustments on these navigation links. I want the login button to feel like a secondary button, so I'm going to add stroke around it, and I'm going to give it some rounded corners, and I'm going to change the color of the stroke. I'm then going to go to the register button. Just like the get started button, I also want the register button to be a primary button, and I want it to be obvious, so I'm going to give it a fill, and I'm going to change the color of the text. I'm also going to round up the corners a little bit to keep the buttons nice and consistent. It's really important to keep your ideation and your design a little flexible. Sometimes when I work on a particular section, I just let it flow. I go to other sections and work on them, then come back to iterate and make sure you're making improvements over and over again, rather than making one section 100% perfect before moving to the next one. So as you can see, this is looking closely to what we want to achieve. So I'm just going to play it in the prototype to see if we are close to what we want. But before then, I'm going to try to change the color of this partner section a little bit so that it creates some distinction from the regular contents on the header section. This looks nice. I'm going to tone down the green a little bit. I'll make it a little faded. So I'm just going to click a lighter shade of green, and I think this is perfectly fine for what we're trying to achieve on this landing page design. So I'm then going to click on the prototype, and you can see this looks almost exactly as what we want, but we can't scroll down because we've not added any form of interaction or animation on the page. So I'm going to go back to our designs, and I'm going to add a vertical scroll to it. To do that, I'm going to click on the section that holds all other sections, which is this landing page frame, the first frame that we added, and I'm going to head over to this prototype section. I'm going to head over to this prototype section, and I'm going to click on vertical scroll from this section right here. So as you can now see, we can scroll vertically down on our website, and at this stage we are almost done with our design. What I just want to do is I want to create a horizontal scroll in this testimonial section, just like the way we've created a vertical scroll for the whole landing page design. I'm going to add a horizontal scroll for that section, and I also want to do like an interaction for the what we do cards, where we have a normal state and the hover state. So guys, to add a horizontal scroll to a frame or a component is basically just like the way we added a vertical scroll. You're going to make sure the contents of the frame is larger than the frame in which you're adding the scroll. So here I'm just going to frame this whole selection, and I'm going to hold Command on the keyboard, and I'm going to reduce the size of this selection just to where we want it to be, which is not overflowing from the main landing page frame. So I'm going to click on the frame, and I'm going to add a little more padding to the right of it. I'm going to add a little more padding to the right so that when we scroll, there is some more space on the right. You're going to understand this when we create the prototype. So then I'm going to head over to our prototype, and I'm going to click on this overflow scrolling, and I'm going to click horizontal scroll. So now when we go back to our prototype and we scroll, you're going to see here there's a little more space on the right, and that was the padding I added. So as you can see, this is scrolling nicely, and this is what we want. I won't be doing this click scroll today, that will be something for another day. So stay tuned in the channel to get more of this smart animate scrolling. So as you can see guys, we are almost at the end of the video, and our designs are almost done. So what I'm just going to do is to remove the stroke from this card, and I'm going to add a little bit more styling to make this a lot visually appealing. I'm going to add some drop shadow, and I'm going to do the same thing for this what we do card right here. I'm going to remove the stroke, and I'm going to add some drop shadow to it, and I'm also going to click and create another variant with the button at the top of the screen, because I want to create an hover effect on this card. I want it to feel like when the user hovers on this section of the card, they get a different effect. Probably the card raises, the card gets an elevation above the screen a little bit, and to do that, I'm just going to edit this variant, and I'm going to call the new variant hover. So on the hover variant, I'm going to change the texture of the button. I'm going to change the button type. I'm going to give the button a feel, and I'm going to give it this orange color. I'm going to change the text color from black to white. I'm also going to round up the corners a little bit more, just like the way you are seeing on your screen here. So I'm also going to click on the entire card, the entire hover card right here, and I'm going to scroll down to this effects section. I'm going to add an effect to it. It's going to be a drop shadow effect. I'm going to increase the blur a little bit more, and I'm going to tone down the drop shadow opacity. So guys, here we have it. We have our default state and we have our hover state. I'm going to switch to the prototype mode, and I'm going to switch the prototype behavior to while hovering. And on while hovering, I'm going to connect the wire from the default state to this hovering state right here. So as you can see, we are done with this design. I'm just going to click on the prototype button, and as we scroll down, you can see how neat looking this design is. And this is exactly the hover thing we just did on the card. If you hover on any one of these cards, you get this elevation pop-up that makes you feel like the card is active. So this is another cool things you can do to work on your hover states and your active states. And as you can see, the testimonial section looks nice and better, and the scroll works. And this is it, guys. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, turn on the notification bell to get more videos like this. In the nearest future, I'm going to be doing something for mobile applications where we are going to walk through the whole onboarding section down to all the final pages and the profile pages. So thank you guys for staying tuned. I'll see you in my next video.